Hello everybody, I am Karryshh and I'm gonna tell you a killer story. The name is Betty and Bert and it's about two best friends who live on an island and one day something unexpected happened in their lives. I want you to watch this video till end and subscribe if you're new here. Like and share cause Moonlight Darkness is best place for mysteries. With that, let's begin the story of Betty and Bert. The story begins with Betty, a 30-year-old woman who runs a tourist information center on Tuvalu Island. And yes, Tuvalu is a real place. You're probably seeing a photo of it right now. It's actually the least visited place in the entire world, and basically no one goes there. Betty was always short on money, but since she had no family, she somehow managed to get by. On the other hand, there was Bert, her so-called best friend, who helped her run the tourist center. Unlike Betty, Bert had a family with kids, so being broke just didn't work for him. Now their friendship wasn't perfect either, but it wasn't completely broken. It was just something they dragged along for years. Until one night, the thread holding their friendship together finally snapped. That night, Bert walked into the tourist center where Betty was sitting on a recliner, sipping coffee and flipping through Vogue magazine. Bert said, "Not a single tourist came in today, huh?" And Betty answered, "Nope, not even a bug. It feels like the whole world hates this island." Then Bert finally let it out that night. He told her, "Look Betty, I'm your friend. I understand you, but no one comes here. Last year only 2,000 people visited Tuvalu. And this year it's barely 200. I've got a family to feed and I seriously need money." Hearing that, Betty glared at him and snapped, "What do you even want from me, huh?" But Bert didn't back down. He just blurted out, "I don't know. I really don't know." Then Betty pressed him. "What do you mean you don't know? Just say what's in your head." And then finally Bert shouted, "I'm leaving this place. I've got a new job at an insect repellent factory. The pay is good and I can't stay here anymore." Now hearing that, Betty just laughed. She stood up, tossed her magazine on the table and walked out. Bert watched her leave, but once she was gone, he could finally breathe again. The truth was, Bert felt trapped in this friendship with Betty. He didn't want to stay tied to her forever, but at the same time, he couldn't bring himself to leave because deep down Bert was in love with her. But that love had turned toxic because Betty never loved him back. She had always kept him in the friend zone. She never allowed him to flirt or even express how he really felt. He had met Betty 2 years earlier at a bar, and from that moment on, he was in love with her. But every time he tried to get closer, she pushed him away. Once, when they were alone at a beach, Bert tried holding her hand, but Betty quickly pulled hers away. Things like that kept happening, and Bert finally realized the truth that she would never love him. For his own good, he needed to walk away, because it felt like Betty was just using him whenever it suited her. The truth was, Bert was always there for her, always saving her from trouble. Because you see, Betty was a dangerous woman. Often she got herself into violent situations. She had even been arrested multiple times, but Bert was the one who kept bailing her out. He always stood by her side, yet Betty never once appreciated him. She had never even said thank you. One day, Bert finally realized he was trapped in this friendship, and the only way out was to move on with his own life. That's why he got married, had twin kids, and started loving his family. But Betty was so bitter, she didn't even show up to his wedding. In fact, on his wedding day, Bert knew he had to cut all ties with her, or she will eventually destroy him. Still, 2 years ago, after his wedding, Betty came up with the idea to open a tourist center. She asked Bert for help, and since he was secretly in love with her, even after marriage, he agreed. He poured all his savings into this business, but it completely failed because no one visited Tuvalu Island. Now Bert desperately needed money for his family, and for the first time in his life, he fought with Betty. He finally pulled himself out of this toxic relationship, but in this process, he also made her furious. Now after Betty left that room that night, Bert sat down on the recliner and he tried to process everything that just happened. He knew Betty always acted recklessly when she was angry, so he wasn't sure what she might do next. That's when he noticed a piece of paper sticking out of her desk drawer. He opened the drawer and he was shocked. Inside were stacks of missing persons Varson's posters. You see, many people had disappeared from this island, and Betty had all their posters in her desk. Bert panicked. Why does Betty have all these missing posters? Could she be really behind these kidnappings? Is Betty a serial killer? He started sweating heavily, but the questions kept racing in his head. The truth was, he knew nothing about her past. Betty was in jail 10 years ago and he didn't even know what she did to go there. However, now it all started to make sense to him. Maybe she unalived someone back then as well, and maybe tonight would be his turn. As he stuffed the posters back into the drawer, Betty suddenly appeared outside the glass gate of the tourist center. Terrified, Bert slammed the drawer shut, and when she came inside, she asked, "What's wrong with you, big head?" He stammered, "Me? Nothing, I'm fine." But she noticed the sweat dripping down his face. When she pressed him on it, Bert nervously said that he had been exercising, which was an obvious lie. Betty narrowed her eyes at him suspiciously, and Bert's fear grew. All he could see now was the face of a serial killer, and he was convinced she would unalive him next. Not only this, Betty had also been acting really strange lately. She had gained weight and she always wore striped shirts with jeans, black shoes and a gold chain, like a picture-perfect female serial killer. Then suddenly she reached into her back pocket and Bert panicked. He stepped back because he thought she was pulling out a weapon, but all she pulled out was an insect repellent can. She slammed it down on the table and snapped, "So you're leaving me for this? Well, tonight I'll do something that'll make sure you'll never leave me again." Those words sent chills down his spine. Betty then bit her lower lip and she went and locked the door. Bert's heart started pounding uncontrollably, and then she suddenly ran toward him, jumped on him and started kissing him. That's when us readers realized that Betty actually loved Bert as well, but the way she expressed it was twisted. However, Bert couldn't see it that way. He was terrified and he was convinced she was about to unalive him. So he reached back, grabbed her waist, and while she was kissing him, he smashed it over her head. Betty collapsed to the floor unconscious and blood pooled around her head. Bert gasped for air and screamed, "I won't let you destroy my life." He then kicked her head repeatedly until her skull shattered and blood splattered everywhere. Finally, Bert felt relief. He thought he had freed himself from the toxic relationship, and maybe in this process he even saved everyone by killing a serial killer. Then he sat back down at the table trying to catch his breath, but a minute later, there was a knock at the gate. A young woman came and asked, "Is this tourist center open? I need to book a tour for 15 of my friends." The woman also explained the reason she needed to book a tour for, and it was because the serial killer of this island had finally been caught by the cops. So basically, Betty hadn't been a serial killer at all, and Bert had just killed his friend out of fear. On top of that, those 15 tourists would have brought in a lot of money, and now that chance was gone forever because Bert had just made the biggest mistake of his life, and that's where the story ends. Basically, the ending hits in a way that we know maybe this business can finally run off. However, now that's not gonna happen. So that was the recap video of the story Betty and Bert, and I hope you have all enjoyed the story that I have written myself. Now, if you know about director's cut in a movie, I'm gonna tell you about author's cut. This was the author cut because the author himself is narrating, and I've just told you many things in this story that was not in the written version. Like in the written final draft, I never mentioned why Betty started kissing him, because we were reading that story from Bert's point of view. But here, since I'm recapping everything, I just thought making it more profound for everyone. Anyway, if you want to read the story in written form, you can check the Amazon link in the comment box and the description section. I have turned the story into a read and write notebook where you can first read the story and then use the rest of the book as a notebook. There's also a few more short stories left, so I'm gonna bring them out one by one. The next story is gonna be The Blood. It's a complete horror and it's a little bigger than this one as well. And to be honest, there's something in this author run that I've been working on for more than 3 years now. And damn, I trust with everything I've got. That story is gonna blow your mind. I'm not gonna reveal anything about that yet, but just wait and see. Now I see you all in the next one. Thank you for joining my channel, and I hope you keep on being a member, because I'm gonna do my best to have you entertained. Stay safe, stay happy, and stay alert, because they always see you.